What's going on, people? Welcome to the Jaws of Life podcast, episode 4. It's May 27th, 2017. And trying something a little different. My favorite thing to do is driving, if I haven't already mentioned it. And I figured, why not do a podcast in my car? Plus, I am stuck in traffic. So I figured, perfect time to, do a podcast. Kind of pass the time. So, first thing I want to talk about, Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather, and whether it's possible or not possible, or if it's going to happen, it's not going to happen. Most of the talk I hear about it from different people, just casually or online and stuff like that, is majority negative kind of talk about it, saying that he doesn't belong in the ring with them and it's a shame to boxing. I mean, you hear some positive stuff, but most of it's negative. I think that I think it's amazing that Conor McGregor has put himself in the position to where people are even talking about it. And if I was a fighter, that's what I would be trying to do. Just like, I think it would be awesome if people were, trying to get me a seat in Formula One. Why not? If you're of that industry or discipline or whatever, why not? If you think you're the best, or you think you've got the skills, why not try to go for the top? So I look at it like it's simpler for him. Yeah, he's not a specialist in boxing, but at the same time, it's almost like he doesn't have to worry about takedowns, doesn't have to worry about kicks, doesn't have to worry about submissions or anything like that. He just has to straight up box. So to me, it's almost, if you're looking at it, like, okay, well, that's simpler because they only got to worry about one thing. Or as he said at one time, he's only got to spin one plate, doesn't have to spin a bunch of plates. And I think, why not go for it? If you give me the opportunity, I'd take it. And the thing that bugs me the most is that it's like human nature to define something and put a label on it and say, that's it. He's not a boxer, he's an MMA fighter, but that's just a label. That's just a noise you make with your mouth about what we define as something. That doesn't mean he can't do it because he isn't that thing, And I just hate terms. I hate Republican, Democrat, left, right. If I had to put a term on myself, it would just be driver. I mean, I just want to drive it, so to me, I just want to drive everything. It doesn't matter what it is. And if you give me the opportunity to do it, I'm going to do it. Especially when you look at, he could possibly get paid more to do a boxing match and potentially lose than he could fighting an MMA fight. So it's like, why wouldn't you do it? I mean, yeah, that just seems, business-wise, seems like, and to me, Conor McGregor, to him, if from his perception, that's win-win. Whether he wins or he loses, if he loses, he put himself in that position to get it. He got the fight, he got paid a huge paycheck, and got to fight one of the best boxers of all time. It's more of a lose. It's if Floyd Mayweather loses, then there goes his record. So it's like, I think there's more pressure on him because he doesn't want to retire undefeated, and if he just wouldn't fight him, he possibly could and just fought somebody easier. And there's also the kind of the approach from Conor McGregor's side that it's a bit unpredictable because, it's a different kind of style. It's a different kind of approach to boxing that he will have, being in his MMA background and other fighting. So I think it's pretty interesting. It's an interesting thing to watch and to look at and see what happens. And I hope the fight does happen. I really do. I would love to see it. Now, the let's see, next thing I'm going to talk about here. Okay. just drove, which there's a video on my YouTube channel. Just drove a 1956 Porsche Speedster. It was a replica. It wasn't a real one, you know, an original from the 50s. It was a replica, but it was a good replica. I think it was really well done. There's a guy in the LA area that builds them like this, and there's like 3 ways you can go to him and buy parts. You can buy a kit from him, or you can have him build you one. And what he does is it's built on the Volkswagen Pan, and they just shorten the wheelbase, and then there you go. This one had a 2200cc engine, so it had pretty good power. And I guess being that it was built in around 2015, 2016, it's still fairly new, so it feels pretty tight. And I think one of the coolest things about the automotive world, bike world, is that you can go back in time and drive these vehicles that are still you could do that with planes too, but not everybody has the access to planes like they do the cars and bikes. So you can go back in time and see what it felt like to cruise around California in a Porsche Speedster, and see why it was so appealing to live in California, or be James Dean in California, that's just one of the coolest things I think about the automotive. And there's not really too many other. You can shoot old guns, but you're not gonna get that feeling, the full feeling of everything, like you would if you drive a car. And you, without knowing it, you feel like you're back in the 50s or 60s, or I don't know, I wasn't alive back then, but I would imagine that's what it felt like. But yeah, it was a cool car to drive. And these cars are so simple. You go and you sit in one of these cars, and you realize how far we've come in automotive technology. You have cars now with blind spot monitoring and lane departure warning and these adaptive cruise controls, and they brake for you and they do all these things for you. But then you get in a Speedster like that, and you've got to figure out how that car works and whether its idiosyncrasies are. So the gear shift, and figure out how to finesse that gear shift. I drive a manual car as a daily driver, but it's pretty easy. The clutch is easy. The gear shift is precise and pretty simple and easy. It doesn't take, you don't have to figure it out. With this car, you had to figure it out. It has the floor hinged pedals, so you've got to do that, and you got to figure out where do I put my foot placement on this pedal to get the best feel for the clutch. And then shifter wise, towards the end of the day, I figured out how to get it in reverse. And you had to push down like a regular Volkswagen. I don't know, I have had 2 Volkswagen Bugs, and I don't remember it being this difficult to put it in reverse, but you had to really push it down. It might be this shifter, and it's a pretty vague shifter anyway. And but you had to really push it down to get it in reverse. And I wasn't pushing it down hard enough throughout the day, except at the very end of the day. Then all of a sudden I figured it out. But up until then, it was laughable how difficult it was for me to do this. But you have to figure these. That's what's so kind of great about these cars, is you have to really pay attention when you're operating them, because they're not like other vehicles. You don't just get in it and drive it. You've got to really, figure out how to drive it. And I think those are the ones that you really feel your brain working, and you really feel yourself trying to figure it out. And then you don't have anything else to distract you in a vehicle like that. And you're not insulated, because it's a Speedster. So you're open top, and there's a fiberglass body around you, and you're sitting on some pretty, some pretty thin seats, and so you can feel everything. But and there's no power steering, and there's no power brakes, and everything is manual, and I don't know. It's like motorcycles are kind of like that too, except even more exposed. And it's fun to drive something like that, and then get back in something brand new and be like, whoa, we have come a long, long way. And what's great about this specific Speedster is you can experience this vehicle if you would like to. If you go on Turo, Turo.com, I explain this in the video. You can rent it through Turo. You can take it out. You can try it out for a day and bring it back. It's that easy. And if you're looking to do that, I definitely recommend it. It's a great experience. And what's nice about technology nowadays is you can go and have a taste of what it's like to own this car. And you don't have to actually own it. So you don't have to have a garage to put it in. You don't have to figure out, how you're going to pay for the insurance or anything. You go through the app, you rent the car, you take it out for a drive, and you can really experience what it's like. And that's awesome. Because if you're a car guy and you want to own every car, this makes it so you potentially can own every car, And there's not only this car on there. There's McLaren. There's an MP412C in LA. There's an Alfa Romeo 4C. There's some Ferraris I saw on there. There's Porsche 911 GT3, regular GT3 or regular 911s, as well as the newer GT3. There's a Cayman GT4. So you can really go and experience a bunch of different cars for pretty reasonable price a day. Now I guess the issue is you're not renting from like Hertz or anything like that, so you're dealing with the person individually, and that can be, I guess, kind of tricky sometimes. Plus they get to decide how much, and what I've noticed is the cars that are really expensive, they don't really get rented out, especially if there's another one to compare them to. People are gonna go for the cheaper one, it seems like. Because I think some people just try to like see what the waters are like, so they kind of overprice the car just to see if it'll rent. And it doesn't seem like the overpriced ones have, because you can see how many times people have rented it, and it doesn't seem like the real ones that are higher priced compared to the other ones that are lower priced. The higher priced ones don't have that many rentals or any at all. So I think they kind of price themselves out of the market sometimes. But that's for them to figure out, or they just really don't want to rent it out and they were just seeing what would happen. But anyway, if you want to experience the car, you can go on Turo and check it out. And especially if you're visiting, and a lot of these guys will do airport pickup and drop off. Like they'll drop the car off to you, you land in LAX or any of the airports in LA, and you can take the car, they'll bring you the car. Some of them charge a fee for that and some of them don't. Some of them, so, but anyway, if you want an alternative to the rental car companies that are out there, which we all know they're not car people. So if you're a car person, it's probably a good thing to go with the Turo over if you want a specialized car, especially a manual, because nobody in the United States rents a manual other than either like there's a Club Sportiva, they have a couple manual cars, and then these personal cars. So if you want a manual car, Turo.com, check it out. Let's see next. Oh yeah, physical fitness and motorsport. Years ago, so back in 2013, I decided, and my whole life, I wanted to be a race car driver. I wanted to drive race cars. I wanted to be competitive in a driving sense. So I've always looked at it like, okay, I'm gonna go get this job. I'm gonna make a lot of money doing it, and then eventually I'll race. Well, come 2013, my plan for that to happen was wasn't doing it. So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go drive some race cars. I'm gonna go to some of these race schools because I think it was Ken Block said that the best way to get experience is to go to race schools. He mentioned that that's kind of one of the things he did to get started, and it's nice because you get to get all your learning out on somebody else's car, and it's the best bang for your buck. Because he was saying, when people always ask me, how do I get started in racing? Well, go to race schools or whatever. So I was like, okay, that sounds like pretty good. And I was building jet engines at the time. I did have some money. So I decided, I'm gonna go hit up some race schools. So I think the first one I did was Allenberg, which is a Formula Renault. They have Formula Renault cars, open wheel cars, and they were doing some stuff. And they were trying to get their business going, so they had some discounts on some of their lapping programs. So I tried it out, and but so what I looked at was like, okay, well, how can I gain an advantage now? Now I don't know what racing series I'm going to be in eventually. I don't know, what kind of car I'm going to have yet or any of this. But how can I get an advantage now? And I looked at like, okay, I could work on myself. So I could work on my physical fitness. Being a Marine, you kind of always, because they approach it from that. So the first thing you do when you get to Marine Corps boot camp is you got to get your physical fitness down. You can't be a Marine without physical fitness. It just doesn't, so they go physical fitness first. But then throughout your Marine Corps career, they're always focused, and this is one of the differences between the Marine Corps and other services, is that they have always a focus. You know, always doing what they call a moto run. And for those of you who do not know, moto is motivation. So a motivational run. And so you're always running, you're always doing something physical. And depending on your leadership in the Marine Corps, you do combat soccer. Combat soccer, if you don't know, is a very physical form of soccer where you tackle and you wear flak jackets, which is like our bulletproof vest, and you run around and you tackle people, and you that's combat soccer. We also do combat football. So everything is a lot, and you do shop PT, physical training. Everything is a lot of physical stuff in the Marine Corps. So they get you that baseline first, and they build off of that. And when you're a young devil dog Marine, you don't understand why. You're like, why are you having me do? Why do we got to do? I got this other job. You know, maybe grunts like understand. You know, the infantry, but I was a mechanic. That was my MOS. So like some of us are like, why? I'm a mechanic. Why do I have to also be so focused on fitness? And you don't understand why, but they're doing it, and they're doing it for a reason. Later on down the road, you realize that physical fitness is not only physical fitness. It doesn't only help you out physically, it helps you out mentally. So later on in life, when I was going through some tough times with relationship stuff and all that, my solution was I'm just gonna go, and plus I had a dog that was kind of he was high energy. So I read a book, you know, about you gotta exercise your dog to get him to spend his energy so that you can then be more, he will be more like malleable if you get his energy out, because then he won't be so, he won't have so much energy, so he'll more likely listen to you if you can tire him out or them out. So I would run my dog, and then I noticed like a change in him. You know, as I tired him out, he would listen to me more. He would be easier to deal with. And I noticed that I would have better thinking and thought processes when I worked out, and especially running. To me, running, cardiovascular, a strenuous cardiovascular workout is my basis for everything. So I start with cardio, specifically running, and then that's my baseline. Tire myself out, and then any of the strength and conditioning stuff I do is based off of that. So when I got to the motorsport and I decided, yes, okay, this is it, I'm going for it, I don't care what, this is what I'm doing. I said, well, I can get my physical fitness down. I can take that advantage now because I got myself, right? So I can get that down. So I just started going, okay, this is why I am working out, is because by the time I get to the point where I'm actually competitive in driving and I'm fast enough, I already have the physical fitness down. And I've noticed in the kart racing that has helped, because I can put myself through more physical stress, which keeps my mind more at ease and able to soak up all of this learning and stuff. And I noticed that once I went to a racing school out in Chuckwalla, or is that Chuckwalla Raceway in Desert Center, which is Palm Springs, California, and it was hot. It was March, I think I went there, and it was hot. And the other guy there was two of us in the class that day. We did the one day. The other guy was like dead. I mean, he was dying towards the end of the day, and I wasn't. And it really kind of reinforced that in me. So physical fitness and motorsport, if you are looking to get into motorsport, start with that first. Start with your physical fitness. And I read, it was an Instagram post by a racer that actually is out at the kart track, and I think he's a professional driver now, but he goes out to the kart track every once in a while. And he put, I realized a couple years ago, and then this was after he realized later that he needed to do more about his physical fitness. And I'm like, man, it made me feel kind of good, because I had realized this before that. So I feel I have the advantage, because now I just had to build on my driving. So if you're looking into getting into racing and stuff like that, start with your physical fitness. Get that out of the way. Get that into your head, as that needs to become part of the regimen of what you do every day, and make it part of your life, because you will be better off. And luckily, I had that lesson in the Marine Corps, and I got taught back then to do that. But I'm telling you, do it now, because you will be thanking yourself later that you got that covered. Go, and even if you have to, go get a physical I mean, I guess, yeah, I lucked out where, you know, I kind of know what to do and I know how to keep myself physically fit. But if you don't, go learn. And there's also websites like Onnit.com, which is a good one. They cover everything from nutrition to you know, exercises you can do, and beginner stuff too. They have one I just saved article about beginning kettlebell workouts and stuff like that. But go on there, read around, and get your basic foundation for physical fitness, and it will help you in anything really. I mean, I don't care what it is. Even if you're just an intellectual or you're a scientist or something, like, go do physical fitness. I guarantee you will feel better every day because you're more physically fit. And people always say, oh, it's just a vanity thing and blah, blah, blah. No, that's bullshit. Whoever tells you that is either, one, not physically fit, or they're maybe just dumb, because it's not just a vanity thing. It actually helps your brain to be physically fit, because if your body has less strain on it physically, you can do more mentally. I guarantee. I'm not joking. Plus the endorphins and all that shit. I mean, that really does make a difference. I'm telling you. Even in your daily life, it'll make you feel better to do it. So just get it done. Don't ask any questions. And what I actually wrote this down, but I put why I started running before racing. So that's it. Run before you race. Just there. It's that simple. Run before you race. You'll thank me later, believe me. Oh yeah. So they just put out they just released what the 2018 Indy cars are going to look. Oh, on to the next topic, by the way. The 2018 Indy cars. And I haven't liked the way an Indy car looks since, I think, like, what is it, the 90s? With there was like some pretty cool Indy cars in the 90s. Or I went to the Indianapolis 500 back in 2014. I went to Indy Museum. And there was they had Dan Weldon's car was like one of the last Indy cars I actually liked, because they have Dan Weldon's car sitting there in the museum. It's like number 29. I took some pictures of it. But that was like, it was such a cool looking car. And then these cars now, these current ones, are just, I don't know, they look weird. I just don't like the way they look. They're not appealing. And they might work aerodynamically, but I think race cars have to look, they have to, in your mind, I mean, they have to be, if you're a little kid, have to look. And I always felt like the 80s and 90s F1 cars are like the perfect looking race car when it comes to an open wheel car, like the McLaren MP44, MP45, MP46, like that basic single plane aero. And so they released the 2018, and I think that is the way an open wheel car should look. You know, back to that. And they do have like a more complex aero package, I guess, but everybody's gonna be running the same aero package, but they do have a version that's single plane aero, and I just think, man, I want to drive one of those cars. I think that's the thing. It makes me want to drive it, and that's what they have to do. Like, you have to look at that and be like, I want to drive that thing, and not look like a science experiment, which is essentially what they are. But I don't know. Some of these F1 with the Cascade aero on the front wing, and I don't know. I like the new look of these 2017s, but single plane aero, man, I don't know what it is. If I was gonna build an open wheel car myself, I would do single plane aero, because I think it looks awesome. I also think it would make F1 more competitive if you had single plane aero, because they would be less aero dominant or less aero reliant when you have all these Cascade elements and all these complex aero packages and stuff. But that 2018 IndyCar, go look it up if you haven't. Go Google it. I think they're going back to making you want to put that poster on your wall, like, oh, that's an Indy car. And so it's going to be pretty cool next year when you see him running at the Indy 500, which is this weekend, which I'm pretty excited for, because I want to see how Fernando Alonso qualified. What was it, 5th or 9th? 9th, 5th. Anyway, he qualified pretty good for something he hasn't done before. And that's pretty cool, and it's one of the reasons I'm going to watch, or try to watch. I'll be working a little bit, but I'm going to try to watch as much of it as I can. And then also, there's the Monaco Grand Prix, which is my favorite F1 race, because Monaco is my favorite F1 track. I just think I don't know, something about that whole race and the history of it, and it's one that I used to watch, back when I was a little kid. You got Ayrton Senna driving around those streets in that Dayglow Mercedes. I mean, that's to me is what I remember. That's the nostalgic F1 to me, and that's this weekend. And Mercedes not on top. Ferrari is actually on top. I just watched qualifying this morning. They're on top, which is amazing. Kimi Räikkönen had got his first pole since 2008. That's a long time. Almost a decade without a pole. Like, that's kind of crazy. But I guess he just hasn't been able to put it together, and he did this morning, and I've watched the lap, and those cars, fastest an F1 car has ever gone around the Monaco track in like 112 something, and it's like, jeez. I mean, you imagine, like, if you've raced or driven that track on a simulator like Gran Turismo or something like that, and you think about what you've got to do to put together a lap like that, man, I mean, geez, it's just, I'm amazed by it, because even to put together a lap, I mean, I know just karting, to put together a good lap is incredibly, I don't think people understand how difficult it is to put together a lap. Now, then to do it in an F1 car that is going faster than F1 cars have ever gone, with as wide as they are, and everybody's watching you, and all that pressure's on you, and you have to put that lap together. I mean, to do that on a track like Monaco with no room for error, there's no runoff, there's just barriers on either side. So to make a mistake is the most consequence probably out of any track, maybe other than Singapore or Baku, the street circuits. And oh man, I mean, I would love to have the opportunity to try to put that lap together, because that's got to be the greatest feeling ever in the history of driving, to put together a pole lap at Monaco in the fastest F1 cars of all time. And I'm gonna leave it at that. You just let that simmer in your brain. Let that thought simmer in your brain about how to do that, about how difficult it is to do that. And this week, I'm going to the BMW M School. I'm going on Tuesday, on the 30th. So I'm going to finish off May with a good racing school. So I'll talk about that next time. And so I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Watch the Monaco Grand Prix. Watch the Indy 500, because I'm going to talk about it on the next one also, as well as the BMW school. So take it easy.